Olivia Turner, a successful Black CEO, boards a flight in first class, hoping for a peaceful break, only to face discrimination when a flight attendant, Karen, denies her a pair of headphones offered to other first-class passengers. Karen's condescending treatment and refusal to acknowledge Olivia's rightful place in first class reveal a deep-rooted bias. Despite the humiliating incident, Olivia remains composed, but the disrespect she encounters forces her to confront systemic issues within the airline, setting the stage for a larger battle against prejudice and inequality in both the company and the industry at large. Aboard a flight, a Black woman prepares for what should be a rare opportunity for peace and solitude. The moment she boards the plane, however, something unsettling occurs that threatens her brief respite. Seated comfortably in first class, a space she earned through hard work, Olivia Turner, CEO of a successful tech company, faces a situation that will reveal more than just poor service. Her encounter with a flight attendant will soon unravel an issue much deeper, one rooted in subtle bias, and what follows is a display of unshakable resilience that will challenge everyone's expectations. Before we continue, where are you tuning in from today? Let us know in the comments below. If you appreciate inspiring stories about perseverance, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring these impactful stories to a wider audience. Now let's dive in. Olivia Turner was no stranger to the hustle and bustle of airports. As the head of a booming technology company, she had spent countless hours navigating the crowded terminals of international airports. With her confident demeanor, towering height, and polished style, Olivia turned heads wherever she went. Her signature look, an elegant trench coat, a designer tote bag, and a boarding pass in hand, screamed sophistication. It wasn't that she sought attention. She didn't need to. She radiated a quiet authority that demanded it. This journey, however, was unlike the usual business trips or networking events. Olivia wasn't traveling for a meeting or conference. She was finally taking time for herself. For the first time in years, she was stepping away from her high-pressure career to take a much-needed break. No phone calls, no constant emails, and certainly no boardroom debates. Olivia was seeking a few moments of peace, a rare luxury in her otherwise demanding life. Her heart longed for some quiet time, away from the whirlwind of her success. Upon entering the first-class lounge, Olivia handed her boarding pass to the attendant. The woman barely glanced at her, ushering her through with an indifferent wave. For a split second, Olivia caught a flash of judgment in the attendant's eyes, but she didn't react. She had become accustomed to these microaggressions, these subtle, silent whispers that she didn't belong in certain spaces she had more than earned the right to be in. She had learned long ago to choose her battles. Finding a peaceful corner in the lounge, Olivia settled into one of the plush leather chairs. She sipped on a fresh espresso, her book resting in her lap. It was the first time in weeks that she felt any sense of relaxation, her mind finally quieting down. For just a brief moment, she could let go of the pressures that accompanied her daily life. That moment of peace didn't last long. As her flight was called, Olivia rose and walked toward the gate. Handing over her boarding pass to the young agent, she noticed a brief pause. He scanned her pass and hesitated when he saw the first-class marker, his surprise momentarily evident before he quickly ushered her forward. "Right this way, ma'am," he said, his politeness just barely concealing his surprise. Olivia nodded graciously, dismissing the unease beginning to stir inside her. She couldn't help but feel a little out of place despite all she had accomplished. The first-class cabin gleamed in all its luxury as Olivia stepped on board. The plush seats, personal screens, and curated menus offered a stark contrast to the rest of the plane. Settling into her seat by the window, Olivia adjusted her scarf and glanced out at the tarmac, the hum of the plane's engines offering a comforting sound as she prepared for the escape she so desperately needed. But something felt off. Olivia's instincts, sharp as ever, told her that this calm moment might not last. As the flight attendants began moving through the cabin, Olivia noticed one of them, a woman named Karen, whose brisk movements and stiff posture suggested a certain distance, even coldness. Her interactions with the other passengers were polite, even warm. But when Karen approached Olivia's row, there was a noticeable shift. The slight hesitation, the stiff smile, and the lack of warmth all pointed to something deeper than mere professionalism. Olivia's gaze never wavered, her calm demeanor hiding a growing fire within. She had seen this behavior before. this silent bias that lurked beneath the surface. She had worked tirelessly to get to this point in her life, and she wasn't going to let something as trivial as an airline attendant's prejudice ruin her hard-earned peace. What happened next would not only reveal the subtle bias she faced, but would also lead to an unexpected twist, one that would leave everyone on board in shock. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted, a subtle tension settled, as Karen, the flight attendant, made her way down the aisle. "Can I get you anything to drink?" Her tone was cold, clipped, devoid of any warmth. "A glass of water, please," Olivia replied, her smile polite, but her thoughts far from calm. Karen nodded stiffly, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she moved away. Olivia inhaled slowly, trying to shake the unease that was creeping into her chest. Maybe she was overthinking it, she reasoned. It could just be a bad day for Karen after all. But deep down, Olivia knew better. The tension only grew when Karen returned, pushing a cart with neatly wrapped headphones for the first-class passengers. Olivia watched as Karen handed out headphones to everyone, her smile polite but distant. Then, when Karen reached Olivia's row, the smile faltered, and Olivia could see the shift in her demeanor. Olivia asked for her headphones, her voice calm, yet firm, but Karen's response was immediate. "Those are for first-class passengers only," she said, her words deliberate and sharp. For a moment, Olivia was speechless. The weight of Karen's words settled heavily in her mind. She glanced at her boarding pass tucked neatly into her jacket pocket, then back at Karen, whose eyes seemed to linger with a judgmental intensity. "I'm in first class," Olivia said, her voice unshaken but firm. Karen's smile twisted into something colder, a thin, condescending smirk. "Of course you are," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Without another word, Karen turned on her heel and moved to the next row. Olivia sat frozen in place, her grip tightening on the armrests. Around her, the subtle murmur of passengers began to grow. She could sense the discomfort in the cabin, the quiet ripple of disapproval. Olivia caught the eye of a woman across the aisle, whose wide eyes spoke volumes of her sympathy and outrage. This wasn't just about a pair of headphones. It was about something much deeper, a microcosm of the systemic discrimination Olivia had encountered far too many times before. As the plane began to taxi, Olivia adjusted her scarf and placed her tote bag neatly at her feet. She had come into the first-class cabin with the quiet hope of a peaceful journey. The buzz of passengers finding their seats filled the air, and the usual pre-flight routine played out. For a brief moment, Olivia allowed herself to relax, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the armrest, as she gazed out the window at the ground crew bustling on the tarmac. But that peace didn't last. Karen, the flight attendant, strode down the aisle with her no-nonsense attitude. Her tray of neatly wrapped headphones was passed out to first-class passengers, each exchange marked by a polite smile and a brief, friendly word. Olivia watched carefully, noting how Karen's interactions were warm with every other passenger. But when she reached Olivia's row, the change was immediate. Karen's smile faltered, and her eyes lingered on Olivia for a moment too long. A subtle tension in her posture that was impossible to ignore. Olivia met Karen's gaze head-on. "Could I have my headphones, please?" she asked, her voice polite, but with an edge of firmness. Karen's lips curled into a thin, insincere smile. "Those are for first-class passengers only," she replied, each word dragged out with unmistakable condescension. For a second, Olivia froze, unsure if she had heard correctly. Her thoughts swirled, but she quickly regained her composure, gesturing toward her seat and the boarding pass tucked securely in her pocket. "I'm in first class," she said, her voice calm but resolute. Karen's expression didn't change. Instead, her smile grew sharper, and a fleeting look of triumph flashed across her face. "Of course you are," she replied, her tone dripping with sarcasm, before turning away without another word. The murmur in the cabin grew louder. Olivia could feel the collective unease as passengers exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others sympathetic. Across the aisle, a middle-aged woman leaned forward, her face a mix of disbelief and anger. She locked eyes with Olivia, who gave a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of the shared moment. Yet beneath Olivia's composed exterior, frustration was building. Karen continued her rounds, handing out headphones to every other passenger, but deliberately skipping Olivia. Each time she passed, the exclusion felt more pointed, more deliberate. Olivia's jaw clenched as she tightened her grip on the armrest. This wasn't an innocent mistake or a misunderstanding. It was an intentional act, a clear message of exclusion. The murmurs grew into quiet conversations as the cabin's discomfort mounted. A man a few rows ahead leaned over to his companion, casting a glance back at Olivia before whispering something. The tension in the air was palpable, an undercurrent of shared awareness. Olivia's mind raced, replaying the exchange over and over. She had encountered discrimination in many forms, in many spaces where she wasn't expected to be. But this time felt different. This time, the stakes were higher. Olivia Turner wasn't just another passenger on this flight. She was Olivia Turner, the CEO of the airline she was flying with. As the plane continued boarding, Karen returned to Olivia's row with a drink cart. Her movements were sharp, her demeanor stiff, and her voice colder than before. "Would you like something to drink?" Karen asked, the words almost mechanical. "Water, please," Olivia replied, her tone polite but unwavering. Without a word, Karen poured the water, her actions brisk and dismissive. She set the glass down on Olivia's tray table with a clink, the glass wobbling before settling into place. Olivia inhaled slowly, trying to maintain her composure. She had spent years mastering the art of staying calm in the face of discrimination, always striving to address bias without losing her dignity. But today, her patience was thinning. As Karen moved on, Olivia felt a gentle tap on her arm. Turning, she saw the woman across the aisle, her face soft with concern. "I saw what happened," the woman whispered, her voice low but filled with empathy. "That was completely unacceptable. If you need someone to back you up, I'm here." Olivia offered a small but sincere smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "I appreciate that." While the support was comforting, Olivia knew that this was something she had to handle herself. She had built her career on confronting challenges head-on, and this was no different. Karen's behavior wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a deeper issue that Olivia had spent years working to combat. As she stared out the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Olivia made a decision. This flight wouldn't just be a journey to her destination. It would be a turning point. Reaching for her phone, she scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. James Everett, CEO of the airline. Her thumb hovered over the call button for a moment before she pressed it. The phone rang twice before James's voice came through, steady, yet tinged with concern. "Olivia," he said, "is everything all right?" "No," Olivia replied, her voice calm but resolute. "We need to talk." The murmurs in the cabin began to grow louder as passengers sensed something significant was unfolding. Olivia closed her eyes, centering herself. This wasn't just about a pair of headphones. It was about respect, dignity, and the very standards she had worked so hard to uphold. She wasn't angry. She was focused, and she knew exactly what needed to happen next. As she waited for James to respond, Olivia's mind raced. This wasn't just about her personal dignity. It was about the values she had fought for throughout her career. She had built her empire by standing up for fairness, never shying away from tough conversations. This moment would be no different. After the brief silence on the line, James's voice shifted to urgency. "Tell me what happened." Olivia recounted the incident with clarity, detailing Karen's dismissive attitude, her refusal to offer Olivia the headphones, and the condescending manner in which she had addressed her. "This isn't just about me," Olivia continued. "It's about the culture we've worked so hard to build, and the message this sends to every passenger and employee who values respect and fairness." James listened intently, his silence reflecting the weight of the situation. After a moment, he responded, "I understand this is unacceptable. I'll handle it personally. I'm heading to the airport now." "Good," Olivia replied, her voice calm but firm. "This needs immediate attention. It's not just about Karen's behavior. It's about setting a precedent." After hanging up, Olivia slipped her phone back into her tote bag and straightened in her seat. She glanced around the cabin, noticing the curious glances from nearby passengers. Despite her outward calm, there was a quiet fire burning inside her. Olivia wasn't angry. She was determined to turn this moment of bias into something bigger, a catalyst for change. She took a sip of her water, steadying her hand, and allowed herself a brief moment to reflect. She had built her career by addressing challenges head-on and confronting uncomfortable truths. This was no different. The fire within her wasn't just for justice, it was for the greater work that still lay ahead. As the plane soared through the clouds, Olivia's mind was already mapping out the steps she would take to ensure accountability, fairness, and most importantly, change. When the plane taxied to the gate, the atmosphere in the cabin was charged with anticipation. Passengers exchanged wary glances, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Olivia remained seated, her posture poised and composed. She knew the next moments would determine whether this incident would be ignored or handled with the seriousness it deserved. The door to the aircraft opened, and in walked James Everett, the CEO of the airline. His tailored suit and commanding presence immediately captured the attention of everyone in the cabin. He was accompanied by two senior airline staff members, their expressions a mix of nervousness and determination. James's sharp eyes scanned the cabin until they landed on Olivia. He approached her with a firm handshake. "Olivia," he said, his voice low but resolute, "I'm deeply sorry for what you've experienced. I've come to ensure this is handled properly." Olivia nodded, her demeanor unwavering. "Thank you, James. But this isn't just about me. This is about what this behavior represents. It's unacceptable, and it undermines everything we've worked to build." James turned to face Karen, who stood stiffly at the back of the cabin, her face a mixture of defiance and unease. "Karen," James said, his tone firm but controlled, "I've received multiple accounts of your conduct during this flight. Your behavior was unprofessional, discriminatory, and it does not align with the values of this company." Karen opened her mouth, likely to defend herself, but quickly closed it, as a deep flush of embarrassment spread across her face. James gestured to one of the senior staff members. "Escort her off the plane," he said, his voice resolute. "We'll be conducting a full investigation, and for now, she is suspended." The cabin fell silent, as Karen, now visibly shaken, was escorted off the plane. Passengers exchanged glances, some nodding in quiet approval, others still processing what they had witnessed. James turned back to Olivia. "I want to assure you that this isn't just about today's incident," he said. "We'll be implementing new measures to ensure this never happens again. Mandatory bias training, updated hiring practices, and a comprehensive review of our customer service protocols." Olivia's expression softened slightly. "That's a start," she said. "But it needs to be more than just policies. It's about creating a culture of respect and accountability. Every passenger, regardless of their background, should feel valued." James nodded. "You have my full support. This will be a turning point for our airline." As passengers disembarked, some stopped to thank Olivia, their words quiet but sincere. Olivia watched them leave, her resolve stronger than ever. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a broader fight for change, and Olivia was ready to lead the charge. In the days following the incident, Olivia Turner took immediate action to address the deeper issues exposed during her flight. She knew this wasn't just about Karen. It was about tackling the systemic biases that had allowed such behavior to persist. Olivia had built her airline with inclusivity and respect at its core, and now it was time to reinforce those principles with concrete changes. Her first move was to call a meeting with senior executives and department heads. The atmosphere in the boardroom was tense, as Olivia stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding attention. She began by recounting the incident, not as a personal grievance, but as a wake-up call for the entire organization. "This isn't just one person's failure," Olivia said, her voice steady. "It's a reflection of gaps in our training, our hiring practices, and our company culture. If we want to be leaders in this industry, we need to hold ourselves to higher standards, not just in service, but in how we treat people." Her message was clear. This wasn't about assigning blame. It was about creating lasting change. Olivia outlined a comprehensive plan, which included mandatory bias and diversity training for all employees, from entry-level staff to top executives. The program would include workshops on empathy, customer service, and unconscious bias, ensuring that every team member understood the impact of their actions. "We can't fix what we don't acknowledge," Olivia continued. "This training isn't just about avoiding incidents like the one we've witnessed today. It's about fostering a culture of respect and accountability. The changes Olivia had set in motion were not just about correcting one mistake. They were about creating a workplace where everyone, from employees to customers, felt seen, respected, and valued. Within weeks, the rollout of her new initiatives began. Olivia personally attended the first training session, standing at the podium in front of a packed auditorium, exuding the same grace and conviction that had defined her entire career. "This is not the end of the journey," she said to the crowd, her voice steady and full of resolve. "It's just the beginning together. We will create a future where respect and dignity are the rule, not the exception." While many employees embraced the initiative, there were some who resisted. Whispers of dissent echoed through certain corners of the company, with a few staff members dismissing the changes as unnecessary or performative. Olivia understood that resistance was part of the process, but she didn't let it derail her. Instead, she welcomed the challenge, encouraging open dialogue and actively listening to those who were uncertain about the changes. In one particularly tense meeting, a senior manager voiced his skepticism. "Do we really need to overhaul everything for one isolated incident?" he asked, his tone defensive. Olivia met his gaze without flinching. "This is not an isolated incident," she responded firmly. "It's a symptom of a much larger issue that affects not just our passengers, but the integrity of our brand. If we don't address the root cause, we're not solving the problem, we're ignoring it." Her words struck a chord over time. The resistance began to wane. Employees who had once been doubtful began to share their own stories of bias and discrimination, finding strength in the company's renewed commitment to change. Some even brought forward ideas to further improve the workplace culture, ideas such as employee resource groups and anonymous feedback channels. Olivia ensured these ideas were given space to grow, reinforcing that this transformation was a collective effort. To keep the momentum alive, Olivia made it a priority to highlight the progress they were making. Monthly updates celebrated milestones such as increased employee satisfaction scores and fewer complaints of bias. These small victories, while modest, were a testament to the importance of the initiative and kept spirits high. Beyond the company's internal shifts, the changes Olivia was championing began to ripple outward. Customers noticed the difference in service, with many praising the warmth and professionalism of the staff. Olivia received heartfelt letters from passengers who felt seen and valued for the first time. Their words a reminder of the power of even the smallest acts of respect. Through it all, Olivia remained the driving force behind the transformation. Her determination inspired not only her team, but also other companies in the industry, many of which reached out to learn from her example. Olivia wasn't just changing her airline, she was setting a new standard for the entire industry. By the end of the first year, the results were undeniable. Complaints of discrimination had dropped significantly, and employee engagement was at an all-time high. Olivia knew there was still work to be done, but she took immense pride in the strides they had made. This wasn't just about fixing a problem. It was about building a legacy of inclusivity and respect, one step at a time. As Olivia's efforts began to take root, the effects extended far beyond her own airline. The entire aviation industry took notice. Competitors marveled at the measurable improvements in customer satisfaction and employee engagement, while trade publications hailed Olivia's work as a model for modern corporate leadership. It wasn't long before her impact attracted the attention of a broader audience. One day, Olivia received a call that would change the trajectory of her career. A coalition of industry leaders and government regulators had formed a task force to address systemic inequities across the aviation industry, and they wanted Olivia to lead it. "This is your chance to make an even bigger impact," James Everett, the CEO of the airline, said when Olivia shared the news. "You've already shown the world what's possible. Now you can help set a new standard for the entire industry." Olivia paused, reflecting on the anonymous letters of gratitude she had received, the employees who had embraced the changes, and the passengers who now felt valued. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a responsibility. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. "If it means creating real change, I'm in." Her appointment as the head of the task force was met with widespread acclaim. Olivia's first priority was to develop a comprehensive framework for systemic reform. She proposed mandatory inclusivity training across the industry, equitable hiring practices, and clear accountability measures. She also advocated for the creation of an independent oversight committee to ensure transparency and fairness. At the inaugural meeting of the task force, Olivia delivered a powerful address that resonated with every attendee. "This isn't just about fixing what's broken," she said, her voice steady and impassioned. "It's about building something better, an industry that values every individual, celebrates diversity, and holds itself accountable to the highest standards of respect and equity. We have the chance to create lasting change, and I won't let it slip away." Her leadership was transformative. Airlines across the globe began adopting her recommendations, ushering in a new era of inclusivity. Olivia's work became a beacon of progress, not only for aviation, but for industries grappling with their own challenges of equity and representation. As Olivia boarded her final flight as CEO of her airline, bound for Washington, D.C. to begin her new role, she couldn't help but feel a profound sense of purpose. The journey she had started from a single moment of injustice had grown into a movement, proving that resilience, determination, and the courage to speak out could create a legacy far greater than any individual. Olivia Turner's journey from that quiet moment, on a flight to becoming a global leader in equity and inclusion, became a powerful testament to the ability of one person to spark transformative change. What began as a single incident of bias had evolved into a movement that redefined an entire industry. Olivia's leadership not only brought systemic reforms to her airline, but inspired companies worldwide to reevaluate their cultures and values. Her legacy was clear. Real change begins with the courage to confront uncomfortable truths and the commitment to act. Through her unwavering resolve, Olivia proved that even the most deeply rooted biases can be challenged, and that one person's voice can create a ripple effect of progress. As the sun set on her role as CEO and rose on her new chapter as an industry leader, Olivia remained steadfast in her purpose. This wasn't the end of her journey. It was only the beginning of a brighter, more inclusive future for all.